بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله المصطفى وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم اجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك الكريم. Lillahi ta'ala, have the good intentions. Barakallahu fikum. The author said, among what we are forbidden from is blasphemy. Among what we are forbidden from doing is blasphemy. From committing is blasphemy, kufr. The condition of falling into blasphemy, that is, for a person to be judged as a blasphemer for what he did, and he's not a Muslim because he's a kafir, he can't be a Muslim and a kafir at the same time, is to say it willingly while knowing its meaning, without a slip of the tongue and without being forced, or to do willingly what only a blasphemer does. This is the condition for the person to be a kafir. It doesn't say here to intend to go out of Islam. Intending to go out of Islam is not a condition for the person to go out of Islam. The condition is that if it were a statement, he said it willingly, no one forced him, while he knows what it means. His tongue did not slip, so it wasn't a mistake. And if it was a doing, an action, he did it willingly. He did what only a blasphemer does, such as prostrate to an idol. Evidence for that is the saying of Allah, وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ لَيَقُولُنَّ إِنَّمَا كُنَّا نَخُوضُ وَنَلْعَبُ قُلْ أَبِاللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ وَرَسُولِهِ كُنْتُمْ تَسْتَهْزِئُونَ لا تعتذروا قد كفرتم بعد إيمانكم. If you were to ask them, O Muhammad, وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ, if you were to ask them, لَيَقُولُنَّ إِنَّمَا كُنَّا نَخُوضُ وَنَلْعَبُ, they would certainly say, we were just playing and engaging each other. قُلْ أَبِاللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ وَرَسُولِهِ كُنْتُمْ تَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. O Muhammad, say, is it Allah, His verses, and His messenger that you belittle? Do not make excuses. لَا تَعْتَذِرُوا قَدْ كَفَرْتُمْ بَعْدَ إِيمَانِكُمْ. Do not make excuses. You have blasphemed after your belief. Someone might say, this ayah was revealed in reference to the hypocrites. The hypocrites who aren't even Muslims. A munafiq, we know that when someone is a munafiq, a hypocrite in his conviction, it means he's only showing that he's a Muslim outwardly. He's only pretending to be a Muslim while he's not a believer. Or he's doubtful if Islam is true or not, but he portrays himself as a faithful Muslim. Yes, even if this ayah was revealed about the hypocrites who pretended to be Muslims, however, those hypocrites, before it's clear that they actually have kufr in their hearts, and as long as they show that they are Muslims, and we don't know what's in their hearts, how do we treat them? How do we judge them? As Muslims. Then what was the reason why they were judged as blasphemers after they were judged as Muslims? Was it because they were hypocrites? No. It was what? Because they committed blasphemy. Yes, it's because they showed the kufr outwardly. That's why. So even if this ayah was revealed about the hypocrites, still, they were judged as Muslims according to what appeared, and we don't know what's in their hearts. And they were not judged as kuffar until they did kufr. It wasn't that they were hypocrites that made them be judged as kuffar. It was that they showed the kufr outwardly that made them judged as kuffar. So whoever shows Islam and then he shows kufr, then he is judged as a kafir. Our Shaykh said in the summary, it is not a condition for a person to fall into blasphemy that one must have learned the judgment of the uttered blasphemous words, or that one must have liked or believed their meanings, as falsely stated in the book called Sunnah. Anger is not an excuse for one to escape the judgment of falling into blasphemy. That's because as long as a person is angry, he's still sane. His anger doesn't take him out of sanity so that he would be excused. So he's not excused. He said, concerning this matter, Imam an-Nawawi said, if a man were angry with his child or a young slave and hit him severely, then another person asked him, how could you do this? Aren't you a Muslim? And to that his deliberate answer, his intentional answer was, no, he blasphemed. This was said by Hanafi scholars as well as others. And his statement, this was said by Hanafi scholars as well as others, it means that this judgment was said by them even if they didn't give the same example. So beware of this book, Fiqh Sunnah. You might find it on some bookshelves in a local masjid. In this book, it is said that a person does not go out of Islam unless his heart was pleased with the blasphemy and he intended to go out of Islam. And this is not true. The author of Fiqh Sunnah is a man named Sayyid Sabiq. And that claim is kufr. The claim that a person only commits kufr if he intended to go out of Islam is kufr. This is also proven by the Hasan hadith of At-Tirmidhi. إن العبد لا يتكلم بالكلمة لا يرى بها بأسا يهوي بها في النار 70 خريفا. It means, surely the slave would certainly speak with the word. He does not see anything wrong with it. Because of it, he falls for 70 autumns into hell. This means, surely the slave, meaning the person, would certainly speak with the word. So the word certainly was added because of the lamb. So there's inna, which is an emphasizer. So surely, al-abid, the slave, la yatakallamu, this lamb here, la yatakallamu, is for additional emphasis. So that's why in English the word certainly was put there. Surely the slave would certainly speak with the word. Inna al-abda la yatakallamu bil kalima. So this means surely the slave, meaning the person, would certainly speak with the word of blasphemy. And it was translated the here because of al, bil kalima. He does not see anything wrong with it, i.e., he does not see it as harmful or as a sin deserving of hell. This includes joking and what is said out of anger or ignorance. The one who's joking, if his joke contains blasphemy, he blasphemes. And the fact that he was ignorant, thinking that since he was only joking, he's excused, he's not excused. And the one who's angry is not excused, and the one who's ignorant is not excused. Because of saying it, he falls for 70 autumns, i.e., 70 years, which is into the bottom of hell. Because autumn only comes once per year. A place specific for blasphemers. The sinful believers do not go that deep into hell, as proven by a hadith of Al-Hakim that Al-Wail is a valley in hell whose bottom is 40 years deep. The blasphemers will fall into it on Judgment Day. That is, there is a depth into hell. Then, after reaching that depth, there's a valley that goes even lower. That valley in hell is called Al-Wail. No believer goes in there. So that's how we knew that in this hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking about a kafir, a person who committed kufr, because he will go to the bottom of hell. The blasphemers will fall into it on Judgment Day. And so one might blaspheme without intending to leave the religion, and without exchanging Islam for another religion. That statement is there as a direct contradiction to what Sayyid Sabiq said in his book Fiqh Sunnah, that Muslim, he intends to leave Islam and he accepts the blasphemy in his heart and he exchanges Islam for another religion. None of that is a condition. So one might blaspheme without intending to leave the religion and without exchanging Islam for another religion, as is the case of many of those who are attributed to Sufism. That's because some of those fake Sufis, often they commit blasphemy. Looks like someone wants to ask a question. Did you say the blasphemers will fall 40 years into hell or 70 years? They will fall for 70 years into hell. And no Muslim will go that deep into hell. How do we know that no Muslim goes that deep into hell, as deep as 70 years? It's known that hell is 70 years deep, because of a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ was with his companions when they heard a huge crash. So the Prophet ﷺ said to them, "Do you know what that was?" They said, "Allah and His Messenger know best." He said, "That's the sound of a boulder that just hit the bottom of hell after it had been falling for 70 years. A boulder had been thrown into hell 70 years earlier, and it's just now hitting the bottom when they heard it." So he told them that's the sound of a boulder that just hit the bottom of hell after it had been falling for 70 years. So it's known that hell is 70 years deep. The Prophet ﷺ says in this hadith that the person would utter a word that he deems harmless, and because of saying it, he will fall for 70 years in hell, which means he goes to the bottom like that boulder. Then a third hadith, which is narrated by Al-Hakim, in which it is stated that Al-Wail is a valley in hell, and that the kuffar will fall into that on Judgment Day. That means that, as we know, Muslims and kuffar go into hell. Then Muslims would reach only a certain depth in hell. What's beyond that depth, there is a valley in hell called Al-Wail. Kuffar will go into there. So the sinful believers do not go that deep into hell. That is, the sinful believers who do enter hell, they will not enter that valley. May Allah protect us. Is that clear? More evidence that one does not have to intend to leave Islam to be judged as a blasphemer is what was narrated about the Khawarij. Hafiz ibn Hajar said, وممن جنح إلى بعض هذا البحث الطبري في تهذيبه، فقال بعد أن سرد أحاديث الباب فيه الرد على قول من قال لا يخرج أحد من الإسلام من أهل القبلة بعد استحقاقه حكمه إلا بقصد الخروج منه عالما، فإنه مبطل لقوله في الحديث يقولون الحق ويقرؤون القرآن ويمرقون من الإسلام ولا يتعلقون منه بشيء. ومن المعلوم أنهم لم يرتكبوا استحلال دماء المسلمين وأموالهم إلا بخطأ منهم فيما تأولوه من آي القرآن على غير المراد منه. Ibn Hajar, he said, among those who have indulged in this subject is At-Tabari in his book At-Tahdhib. After listing a number of hadiths on the topic, meaning the hadiths about the Khawarij, he said, so At-Tabari said, and he's from the Salaf, wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah. In these hadiths is refutation of whoever says that none of the people of the Qibla go out of Islam after deservingly being judged with Islam unless he intended to go out of Islam knowingly. See what At-Tabari said? He said, in these hadiths is refutation. We're going to mention one of those hadiths. So what's Ibn Hajar saying? He's saying, Ibn Hajar himself is saying that At-Tabari said, in these hadiths, one of which he's going to mention, is refutation of whoever says that none of the people of the Qibla, and those who are attributed to Islam, that none of the people of the Qibla go out of Islam after deservingly being judged with Islam, unless he intended to go out of Islam knowingly. He's saying that this is against the hadiths. He said, this claim invalidates the Prophet's statement. Means it's against the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the hadith, يَقُولُونَ الْحَقِّ وَيَقْرَؤُونَ الْقُرْآنَ وَيَمْرُقُونَ مِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ وَلَا يَتَعَلَّقُونَ مِنْهُ بِشَيْءٍ. Which means they say the truth, they recite the Quran, and they go out of Islam, and nothing of it sticks to them. He continues to say, and it is known that they did not deem the Muslims' blood and money lawful except by a mistake from what they have misinterpreted of the verses of the Quran according to other than what it was intended. He's saying those people, they did not intend to go out of Islam. Rather, they misinterpreted verses of the Quran. They misunderstood the Quran. They fell into a mistake. But he's saying it's blasphemy. They committed kufr. And the Prophet said so, because the Prophet said, يَمْرُقُونَ مِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ. They leave Islam. They go out of Islam. يَقُولُونَ الْحَقِّ. They say the truth. وَيَقْرَؤُونَ الْقُرْآنِ. And they recite the Quran. وَيَمْرُقُونَ مِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ. And they go out of Islam. وَلَا يَتَعَلَّقُونَ مِنْهُ بِشَيْءٍ. And nothing of it sticks to them. The acceptance in the heart is only conditional in the case of compulsion. Ikrah. Being delighted in the heart is not a condition for falling into blasphemy by the consensus. Being delighted in the heart is not a condition for falling into blasphemy by the consensus. Mullah Ali al-Qari said in his explanation of Al-Fiqh al-Akbar by Imam Abu Hanifa, he said, in the book Hawi al-Fatawa, it says, whoever blasphemes with his tongue while his heart is tranquil with belief is a blasphemer, and he is not a believer to Allah. Very explicit. Whoever blasphemes with his tongue, whoever says kufr while his heart is tranquil with belief, while he doesn't believe in kufr. In his heart he does not believe in kufr, but with his tongue he said the kufr. Whoever blasphemes with his tongue while his heart is tranquil with belief is a blasphemer, and he is not a believer to Allah. This is known from what is understood by the saying of Allah. Mullah Ali Qari continues to say, من كفر بالله من بعد إيمانه إلا من أكره وقلبه مطمئن بالإيمان ولكن من شرح بالكفر صدرا فعليهم غضب من الله ولهم عذاب عظيم. Whoever blasphemes in Allah after having believed deserves the torture of Allah, except for he who is compelled while his heart is tranquil with belief. What is understood is that the one who is not compelled while his heart is tranquil with belief blasphemes, because what is actually stated in the verse is that the one who is forced while his heart is tranquil with belief does not blaspheme. Okay? So to understand the point, I'm going to come to your question in one moment. To understand this point, the point is being made, you have to understand the difference between al-mantuq, what's pronounced, what's actually stated, and al-mafhum, and what's understood. So what's actually stated here? What is actually stated in the verse is that the one who is forced to blaspheme while his heart is firm with belief does not blaspheme. So this is the one that Allah excused. So it's understood then that the one who was not forced to say the blasphemy while his heart is tranquil with belief does blaspheme. So what is understood is that the one who is not compelled while his heart is tranquil with belief blasphemes, because what is actually stated in the verse is that the one who is forced while his heart is tranquil with belief does not blaspheme. That's why Mullah Ali Qari said this is understood. He's saying the one who says blasphemy with his tongue while his heart is tranquil with belief is a blasphemer. This is understood, not stated, understood. This is understood from this ayah that we recited here. So what is understood is that the one who is not compelled while his heart is tranquil with belief blasphemes, because what is actually stated is the one, what is actually stated in the verse is that the one who is forced while his heart is tranquil with belief does not blaspheme. So this verse is evidence against those who use it to excuse a person from blasphemy if he did not intend to exit Islam. Those people who say that, like Sayyid Sabiq, and there's others, there's a crew of contemporaries who say this. They say that a person doesn't blaspheme if he didn't intend to go out of Islam. They use this part. وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ. As long as his heart is firm with belief, they say, then he didn't blaspheme. But this ayah is about the compelled person, the coerced person, the forced person. Question: when it is said being delighted in the heart is not a condition, to be delighted with what? To be delighted with blasphemy. To be delighted with kufr is not a condition. So for example, a person said Jesus is the Son of God, and he doesn't believe that, and he's not happy with it also. What's his judgment? He blasphemes because he said it. No one forced him, his tongue didn't slip, and he knows what it means. So his being delighted in the heart is not a condition, and his intending to go out of Islam is not a condition.